In the heart of Clearwater, a city filled with towering office buildings and sprawling suburbs, there was a place that had become more than just a restaurant. It was a cornerstone of the community. Soul's Comfort was known far and wide for its mouth-watering southern cuisine. The aroma of fried chicken, collard greens, and cornbread filled the air every day, inviting people from all walks of life to sit down and enjoy a warm meal in the cozy, welcoming space Elijah Rivers had built with his own hands. Elijah, a tall black man with a calm demeanor and an unwavering spirit, had started Soul's Comfort from nothing. He'd worked long hours, saved every penny, and poured his heart into making the restaurant a place where everyone felt at home. It didn't matter whether you were a businessman in a suit or a young family on a tight budget, Soul's Comfort was a haven for anyone who needed a moment to relax, share a meal, and feel part of something bigger. But not everyone in Clearwater saw the restaurant the same way. Mayor Thomas Grayson, a man known for his conservative views and his tight grip on the city's development, didn't like what Soul's Comfort represented. He didn't like the way it was growing, or how it was becoming a gathering place for people of different races and backgrounds. Grayson, a white man with a long history of controlling the city's growth, didn't like the idea of black-owned businesses thriving. It unsettled him. For months, rumors had been swirling that the mayor was trying to find a way to shut down Soul's Comfort. At first, the attacks were subtle: zoning violations, inspection delays, and paperwork mysteriously getting lost in the system. But as the weeks passed, it became clear that the mayor wasn't just trying to slow down Elijah's business, he was trying to destroy it. The tipping point came when the mayor ordered a full-scale investigation into Soul's Comfort. The city claimed the restaurant was operating illegally, accusing Elijah of zoning violations. Everyone knew the allegations were baseless, just a pretext for something more sinister. Mayor Grayson was using his power to close down a business that had become too popular, too influential, and far too successful for his comfort. Elijah fought back. He hired a lawyer, reached out to the press, and organized rallies to defend his right to run his restaurant. But the battle took its toll. Each day, more and more paperwork piled up, more meetings were scheduled, and more of his energy was drained. Elijah knew the city was trying to break him, but he wasn't going to give up without a fight. However, despite the constant pressure, he never let his customers see how exhausted he was. At Soul's Comfort, the food was always served with a smile, and the doors remained open as a place of sanctuary for those who needed it. The community rallied behind him, and for a while, it seemed like they might be able to push back the mayor's attempts. But deep down, Elijah knew the mayor wouldn't stop until Soul's Comfort was gone. Then, one Wednesday afternoon, the news broke. It came in the form of a sudden, urgent breaking news alert. Mayor Thomas Grayson had been involved in a car accident. His vehicle had swerved off the road and collided with a tree. The details were sketchy, but the message was clear. The mayor was in critical condition and had been rushed to the hospital. The city buzzed with a mixture of shock and curiosity. People gathered around televisions and radios, eager to hear what happened. For some, it was hard to suppress a sense of satisfaction. This man, who had done everything in his power to shut down a beloved restaurant and hurt so many people, was now lying in a hospital bed, fighting for his life. It felt like some kind of twisted justice, like the universe was righting a wrong. But Elijah didn't feel that way. He stood in the kitchen of Soul's Comfort, preparing another round of orders when the news flashed across his screen. His heart tightened as he read the headlines, but something in him, something deeper than all the anger, frustration, and injustice, stopped him from feeling satisfaction. He had never been one to wish harm on anyone, no matter how much they had wronged him. "Why am I not angry?" Elijah whispered to himself as he stared at the screen. "Why am I not celebrating?" Elijah's mind wandered back to the countless nights he had spent fighting the mayor's orders, the rallies, the press conferences, and the constant strain of trying to keep Soul's Comfort open. He had been under so much stress lately that he barely had time to think about anything else. Yet, as the news of the mayor's accident sank in, Elijah realized something. He couldn't bring himself to feel anything but sympathy for Grayson. Elijah knew that, no matter what the mayor had done, he was still a human being. People had wronged him, especially the mayor, but Elijah had never believed in holding on to hatred. His mother had always told him that kindness, even in the face of cruelty, was the truest form of strength. I can't just stand here, Elijah thought. His heart was heavy with a strange sense of urgency, but also with clarity. Without thinking, he grabbed his coat, locked the restaurant door, and made his way to the hospital. The hospital was buzzing with activity when Elijah arrived. News crews crowded around the entrance, and staff members hurried through the hallways, their faces tight with worry. It was the kind of atmosphere that made Elijah feel like an outsider, but he ignored it. He had a feeling that he needed to be here, no matter how uncomfortable it felt. As he walked through the sterile, white halls of the hospital, he tried to shake the tension that had settled in his chest. But something inside him told him that this moment, this decision, wasn't just about helping a man who was critically ill. There was something more to it, something bigger that Elijah couldn't quite put his finger on. He turned the corner and nearly bumped into Janice, the mayor's chief of staff, who was rushing down the hallway with a clipboard in hand. She looked up, surprised to see him standing there. "Mr. Rivers?" Janice said, raising an eyebrow. "What are you doing here?" Elijah paused, his heart beating faster now. He didn't know how to explain why he was there. He didn't even know himself. But there was no going back now. "I'm here to help," Elijah said quietly. "I know this is complicated, but he needs someone. And no one should have to go through something like this alone." Janice gave him a confused look, clearly skeptical. After a long silence, she nodded slowly. "Well, if you're really serious about this, come with me. But don't expect anything to change just because you're here. The mayor has made his decisions, and it's too late for any of that." Elijah followed her without hesitation. Something inside him told him that this was more than just a visit to the hospital. There was a deeper connection being formed here, a test of character that would soon reveal the truth about both Elijah and the mayor. When they entered the ICU room, the sight was grim. Mayor Grayson lay unconscious in the hospital bed, connected to a maze of machines that kept him alive. His face was swollen and bruised, and his breathing was shallow. Elijah's stomach churned at the sight. He had never been this close to someone in such a vulnerable state. The mayor was a man who had always been distant, powerful, and unapproachable, but now he was just another person fighting for his life. Elijah hesitated, unsure of what to do. Could he really stand here and comfort the man who had tried to destroy everything he had worked for? Could he really find the strength to offer compassion in the face of everything that had happened? But then he remembered the words his mother had always told him. Kindness doesn't look for a reason. And in that moment, Elijah knew what he had to do. He took a deep breath, approached the mayor's bed, and placed his hand gently on his shoulder. Despite everything, despite the anger, the hurt, the injustice, Elijah spoke quietly, his voice steady and calm. "Mayor Grayson," he said, "I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm here. And you don't have to be alone in this." The mayor's eyes fluttered open briefly, and for a moment, there was confusion in his gaze. But Elijah didn't falter. This was bigger than their past struggles. This was about being human. As the mayor closed his eyes again, Elijah remained by his side, silently waiting. The tension in the room hung thick, but Elijah felt a strange sense of peace, knowing he had done the right thing. But little did Elijah know, this moment of unexpected compassion would set off a chain of events that would change not just the mayor's life, but his own, and the fate of Soul's Comfort. The days after Elijah's visit to the hospital felt like they moved in slow motion. The news of Mayor Grayson's recovery spread throughout Clearwater, but it wasn't just the usual headlines. This time, something was different. The mayor had begun to publicly admit his mistakes. People were shocked. Mayor Grayson admits to his errors and apologizes for past decisions, the news read. It was a statement few had expected. Grayson, the man who had made Elijah's life a nightmare by trying to shut down Soul's Comfort, was now openly acknowledging that his actions had been wrong. He admitted that his policies, especially those aimed at limiting black-owned businesses like Elijah's, were fueled by prejudice. It was a powerful statement, one that many in the city took as a sign of change. But Elijah was torn. He wanted to believe that people could change, that the mayor's apology was sincere, but part of him remained skeptical. After all, this was the same man who had made Elijah fight tooth and nail for his restaurant's survival. Was this really an honest change of heart? Or was it simply a calculated move to win back the people's trust? For the first time in weeks, Elijah felt like there might be a chance for peace. But he also couldn't forget what the mayor had done. The restaurant he had worked so hard to build had almost been taken away from him. And now, he was supposed to just accept the apology and move on? It wasn't that simple. The twist came unexpectedly. A few days later, Elijah received a letter in the mail, an official letter from Mayor Grayson's office. He opened it slowly, wondering what this could be. The letter read, "Dear Mr. Rivers, as part of my ongoing efforts to make amends for my past actions, I would like to meet with you. I have realized the importance of Soul's comfort to our community, and I want to discuss how we can work together to ensure that your restaurant and businesses like it have the support they deserve. I would also like to personally apologize for the harm my previous actions have caused. Please let me know when you are available for a meeting. Sincerely, Mayor Thomas Grayson." Elijah stared at the letter, his heart racing. Could this be genuine? Or was the mayor simply trying to patch things up for his own political gain? He thought about it long and hard. He knew that for the good of his community, and perhaps even for his own peace of mind, he needed to hear what the mayor had to say. The meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. As the day approached, Elijah couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. Why had Grayson chosen to reach out to him specifically? Why had he singled out Soul's comfort? It felt like there was more to this than a simple apology. When the day arrived, Elijah walked into City Hall, his steps heavy with uncertainty. He had always been a man of principle, and the past months had tested his limits. As he entered the mayor's office, he was greeted by Grayson's chief of staff, Janice, who led him to the mayor's private office. The room was large and sterile, with a wide desk in the middle, polished and cold. Behind it sat Mayor Grayson, looking a little worn but less imposing than Elijah had remembered. He seemed smaller now, almost vulnerable. His suit was slightly rumpled, and he wore an expression of tiredness that hadn't been there before. The sight of him caught Elijah off guard. "Mr. Rivers," the mayor said, his voice softer than usual, "thank you for coming." Elijah didn't sit right away. He crossed his arms and stood by the door, still uncertain of what to make of this situation. "You wanted to talk," Elijah said cautiously. "So let's talk." Grayson nodded, pausing for a moment before speaking. "I'm not going to ask for your forgiveness, Elijah. I don't think I deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I've spent a lot of time thinking about what happened. About the way I treated you, your business, and people like you in this city. I was wrong. I let my own biases cloud my judgment. I let my power go to my head." Elijah watched him closely, still unsure of where this conversation was going. He wanted to believe Grayson was being genuine, but trust wasn't something that came easily, especially after everything the mayor had put him through. "I've asked the city council to formally rescind the zoning violation against Soul's comfort," Grayson continued. "That's done. But I also want to do more than that. I want to create a program, something that'll help Black-owned businesses in this city. I've spoken to some of the local investors, and they're willing to support this initiative." Elijah felt a knot tighten in his chest. This was not what he had expected. A program for Black-owned businesses? It sounded like something out of a dream. But was it real? Could Grayson really change? Before Elijah could respond, Grayson continued, his tone more urgent now. "But there's one more thing. Something that I need to tell you, and I don't know how you'll take it." Elijah frowned. "What is it?" The mayor took a deep breath, looking as though he was preparing to reveal a secret. "The truth is, I've been fighting against you, against Soul's comfort, because I was afraid. I was afraid of the influence it had. I saw your restaurant as a symbol of something I couldn't control, something that was challenging the old ways of doing things. I never saw it for what it really was, a place of healing, of community. A place where people could come together, no matter their background." Elijah was silent, taking in the weight of Grayson's words. This wasn't just an apology. This was something deeper. Grayson's eyes met Elijah's. "And that's why I've been trying to shut it down. But after everything that happened with the accident, and after meeting with some of the people in the community, I've realized I was wrong. You're not just a businessman, Elijah. You're a part of the soul of this city. And I want to make things right. Elijah felt his pulse quicken, his emotions swirling. Could this really be happening? Could the mayor, the same man who had tried to destroy everything Elijah had worked for, truly be changing? It was a lot to take in. But before he could respond, there was a knock at the door. A young assistant entered, looking flustered. "Mayor, I'm sorry, but there's a situation with the press. They're starting to ask about your meeting with Mr. Rivers. They're pushing for a statement." Grayson sighed, standing up. "Of course. But, Elijah," he said, turning back to him, "I don't want to rush you. I know I can't fix everything. But I do want to try to make things right." Elijah stood there for a moment, taking in the gravity of the situation. He thought about his restaurant, the hours of hard work, the countless nights worrying about whether it would all come crashing down. He thought about the people who had supported him, his family, his friends, his loyal customers. And then he thought about the man standing in front of him, offering a hand of reconciliation. Finally, Elijah spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I don't know if I can fully forgive you, Mayor, but I'm willing to work with you. If you're really committed to making change, then I'll give you a chance." The mayor nodded, relief washing over his face. "Thank you. That's all I'm asking for." As Elijah left City Hall that day, his mind was racing. He didn't know if this was the beginning of a new chapter or just a fleeting moment of political convenience. But one thing was certain, things had changed. The mayor's words were heavy with meaning, and Soul's Comfort was no longer just a restaurant. It was a symbol of resilience, of redemption, and of the power of second chances. And Elijah? He knew that no matter what came next, he had made the right choice. He had stood up for what was right, even when it felt impossible. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Elijah felt hopeful. And perhaps, just perhaps, that hope was the beginning of a bigger change for all of Clearwater.